Hello, everyone. And in this session, we're going to see our Advanced Diploma Synoptic Assessment for Level 3. And today we're going to discuss for the Practice Assessment 2, and that will be our second part. So we have done the part 1 before. So now we're going to see what we have from question number 4, 5, and 6. So the last video we have made, that was for question 1, 2, and 3, and that's for the practice assessment 2 from the AIT website. So let's have a look what we have. Now question number 4, it will be solely based on the theoretical question. So we have to write a lot of things, and the whole question we just have to write. There is no calculation, there is no working, so all have to do, we have to write. Now, for that reason, students have to have a little bit typing practice before the synoptic exam, because obviously when you'll be starting your level 4, then you will be very used to the writing task. But in level 3, you're not really used to with this sort of writing in management accounting, final account preparation, or indirect tax. So your writing question will be started from this new synoptic from September 2021. So make sure you have some writing practice before you actually sit for the exam. So my advice will be like follow few things, focus on few things that is very important. The first thing I like to say that read the question very carefully. Read the question very carefully. For example, let's say it said describe. So describe is quite common in the exam. So in the AT exam, this one, they use this term uh, most of the time for asking writing task. So all of you have to understand the meaning of describe. So they can ask you describe, they can ask you explain, they can ask you identify, they can ask you critically analyze. So every single question start with, so you have to know what exactly the meaning of that. Sometimes question is not very difficult, but a student understand the wrong way. For example, if the question asks you identify 4 threat, now they're asking just to identify. You really don't have to explain. You really don't have to analyze. You really don't have to find the advantage or disadvantage. All you have to do, you have to identify. But some student, when they see, they know the answer, they just keep writing. This is absolutely not good idea, because the exam will be so much packed in terms of the time management. So if you keep writing a question for 2 marks, and if you keep writing half of the page, you're not going to get too many marks from there. So very, very important you focus what they're asking. If you read the examiner report, you'll see examiner focus on certain thing. It's not they're reading everything. So it's very important you understand that. So as I said, focus what is the question and what is the requirement, describe. And here you can see they're asking describe again, describe, explain, explain. So this sort of thing is very important. You have to understand when the question asks you explain what exactly you're going to write. When the question asks you describe, what you're going to write. If the question asks you identify, what are you going to write. If the question asks you critically analyze, what exactly you're going to write. So if you practice few questions and try to find the difference, what is the difference on the answer, then you can start make your note, and you can say, okay, if this question come that way, I'm going to write that way. If the question come that way, I'm going to write that way. Otherwise, if you don't have enough practice, you will keep writing the same thing, and that will not give you any marks. So this is just the theory questions. There is nothing to understand from here. You have to know the meaning. So for example, they're asking explain the statement of financial position. So what is the statement of financial position? You have to say we have a asset, we have a liability section, we have a non-current asset, current asset. So whatever we have, actually we're going to say as much as possible, depends how many marks we have. So for example, for this 4 question, we have 10 marks. So we can say like roughly we have 2.5 marks for every single question. For 2.5 marks, we have to write at least 4 lines. Remember that. So for every single marks, like just make a plan to write at least 1.5 sentence, and that will give you a 1 marks. Anyway, so this question don't have much thing to explain right here for us, not to understand. It's just a theory question. So we'll move to the next one. We'll see what we have on the next question, and we'll try to solve that question. So this question, task 1.4, this question we can see here, this question for the scenario based question, and this question look like budget. They're asking revised budget net profit for 6 months ended 31st December 2018. So they have asked to revise the budget for the 6 months. So let's try to understand what is the question. So first we're going to read the requirement. Every single time if you open the question, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to read the requirement. Complete the following table to include suggested changes above. Show your answers to the nearest whole pound. So we're not gonna write any pence. So remember the question, if the question said nearest whole pound, we're going to round up, not round down. So if the question is like 55.6, then we'll do 56, not like 55. So we round up. So if it is more than 0.5 or more than that, so we're going to make like nearest pound. So I think it's not very difficult thing. We know how to do it. Let's read the question now. So here they're saying this task is based on the workplace scenario of a new place. Mo Hussein has asked you to help update the budget. The data below is the current budget performance of the new place for the 6 month ending 31st December 2018. The original budget was for 10,000 unit. So my year is ending the 6 month will be ending 31st of December 2018. So June to December, we understand 6 month. And the original budget was for 10,000 unit. The original selling price was 165 and the original cost was 125. Mo has suggested the following changes. So that means after having this data, they give us some additional information. So they are saying sales volume to increase by 10%. So they are saying the sales volume will be increased by 10% and selling price will be increased by 5%. All right. So that will be the addition of the original budget, that is 10,000 unit, selling price 165 and the cost 125. All right. Let's start preparing this budget. The first one is sales revenue. So first we have to make the changes. What is the changes they're asking for? They're saying 10,000 was the original budget and it will be increased by 10%. So if it is increased by 10%, we have to multiply by 1.10. So that means 1 is the base and it will be increased by 10%. That's why I'm multiplying 1.10. You can do 10% on that and you can add again with this 10,000. It will give you the same figure. So if you calculate 10% on 10,000, and if you added the 10% with this 10,000, it will give you the same figure. So it's the same thing. So let's do this one. So 10,000 times 1.10, that will give us 11,000. So with the budget, we make a changes. So sales volume means the unit. Sales unit we have increased by 10%. So this will be 11,000. Then the selling price will be increased by 5%. So my previous selling price was 165. So 165 and it will be increased by 5%. So I'm going to multiply this one 1.05. 1.05. So let's have a look what will be the result here. So we have 165 times 1.05 and that gives me 173.25. That's my new selling price. So that's my revised calculation. So we have a new unit, that is 11,000, and the selling price is 173. So for the next 6 months, this will be the situation. So how much will be the price? How much will be the sales revenue? So 11,000 times the new selling price, and that will give us 190,550. So this will be my new sales revenue. So that's my new figure. So it will be 190,5750. 190,5750. So that is my new sales revenue. The next one we have the cost of goods sold. How much will be the new cost of goods sold? Now before they are saying the original cost is 125 per unit. So we have a new revised unit that is 11,000 that we have calculated before, because it will be increased by 10%. So 11,000 times the cost is per unit 125. So let's try how much is here. 11,000 times 125, and that gives me 137,000. 137,500. So my cost of goods sold 137,500. That's it. Then you have to calculate the gross profit. Now the gross profit is the difference. So sales minus cost of sales, it will give us the gross profit. So 190,5750 minus 137,500, it will give us the gross profit if we take away. So that will give me 530,750. That's my GP, that's my gross profit. Remember, the gross profit means sales minus variable cost. The next one, we have a fixed overhead. Fixed overhead is fixed anyway, so it's not going to be changing. So they already give it to us, all this fixed. And the total is this. So if you minus this one from there, that will give us the net profit. So 537.50 minus 325,000, and that will give us the net profit 205,750. That's my net profit. So from the sales, if I minus all the cost, the remaining balance will be the net profit. So that's it. That's not very difficult. It's a very simple calculation. Only you have to understand the sales volume increased by 10%, selling price increased by 5%. All right, let's move to the next one. Let's have a look what we have the next one. The next one we have here, that question from the NPV analysis, net present value. So let's read this question. With increased production, Mo has asked you to help prepare a capital investment appraisal for a new item of the machinery for the manufacturing department. The machinery will have an initial cost 165,000 and is expected to be sold scrap in the year 330,000. So that means I have the machinery after 3 years. So if I buy it now, I have to spend 165,000, and after 3 years I can sold it for 30,000. So after the end of the useful life of the machine, and if I sold the machine for any amount, we called it scrap value. Sometimes we called it residual value. So it's the same thing. Scrap value or the residual value is the same thing. He has provided the following information to assist you. Year 1, our profit is 64 and the depreciation 50, 90. Year 2, my profit 63 and the depreciation 48. Year 3, 65 and 36. And they're asking to complete the table, rounding the number nearest whole pound, the whole number, and have to calculate the discounted cash flow. Now remember, to do the discounted cash flow, we have to find the net cash flow. Now the net cash flow means from the cash inflow, from the cash inflow, we have to minus the outflow, and this will give us the net cash flow. But in this question, they give us the profit and they give us some fixed cost. Now, obviously, once we take away the depreciation and we have a profit. So that means, for example, from the net cash flow, if I minus the depreciation, then I will have a profit. For example, let's see if I added this two, that is 64,000 plus 50,090. So it gives me 114, 114, so 114,090. So this is the total of these two. Now this is the one I have. From here, if I take away the depreciation, 50,090, and that's my profit, 64,000. That's my profit, 64,000. This is the one. Now the question is, if my profit was 64 and if my depreciation was 50,090, how much was my net cash flow? So the net cash flow was 114. And to complete the table, we need the net cash flow. We don't need the profit. We don't need the depreciation. We need the net cash flow. So to go back to the net cash flow, we have to add it. So you have to add 64 and 50, 90 to go back how much was the net cash flow. So very careful with that. Don't take just the profit, because when you calculate the net present value, we have to find how much was the net cash flow. So if we added these two, that will give us 114,090. That's my net cash flow. And if you multiply with that, that will give us the discounted cash flow. In the exam, they will give us the discounted factor. So for your level 3 exam, you don't have to worry how to get the discounted factor. Maybe in future, in level 4, you will learn how to get it. But for the time being, they will give you in the exam the discount factor. All you have to do, you have to multiply with the net cash flow times by the discount factor. So if you multiply with that, the first one will give us 101,882. The next one, we have the net cash flow. So we'll add this two, this and that. So that will give us 11750. And if you multiply with this one, that will give us 89,065. That's my discounted cash flow. But year 3, we have to be a little bit careful because we have some scrap value. At the end of the year 3, we'll have some inflow of the cash because we're going to sell this machine, and this machine will give us some cash inflow. So we have 65,800, that's a profit, and we have a depreciation. So we're going to add this two, plus we're going to add this 30 to find how much was my net cash flow. So 65,800 plus 36,500 plus 30,000. That will give us 132,360. So that's my total net cash flow. So always careful with the last year because you might have some scrap value or residual value at the last year. All right, so if you multiply with that 0.712, that will give us 94,240. That's it. So this is the completed of the table. Now, if the question asks to calculate the net present value, so we can say this is my positive, this is my positive, this is my positive. So these three are the inflow, and that's my negative, that's my outflow. So what you're going to do, you're going to add all the plus, and you're going to minus from this one, 165,000. That was the outflow, because if I buy the machine, I have to pay the money. So money will go from me. And after investing on this project, This is the inflow I have, these three. So if my inflow is more than the outflow total, that will give us net present value. Now, if it is plus, it will be plus. If it is minus, then it will be minus. So we have to check if I added this three, and if I minus this one, is it plus or minus figure? If it is plus, we put on a plus. If it is minus, we're going to put the minus. But normally it will be plus, because if I invest in a project and if I don't get my return what I have invested, so we are not going to invest that project. And this is the reason this is called investment appraisal. Investment appraisal means before making the investment, I calculate, is this investment suitable for me or not? So let's try to understand now. So if we added this two and minus this one, how much it will get? So that will give us the net present value 120,187. We called it net present value, NPV. So let's go down and let's have a look. They're asking to calculate the net present value. So we're going to write this one here, 120,187. The next one is asking, complete the following sentence when looking at the net present cost. Remember, the net present cost and the net present value is not the same thing. The cost means cost, and the net present value means the total inflow minus total outflow. So that means all the inflow we have, we minus with the outflow, that will give us NPV. And this is only for the cost, net present cost. The better project, so this is only the cost they're asking. The better project to choose would be the one with what? This is very important to understand. With which one? With the lowest net present cost. So we're going to choose the one that will give us the lowest cost. We're not going to choose something that will give us the highest cost. So if the project give us less cost, we should go for that one. But in the exam, if they change the question, if they said not the cost, if they said net present value, for example, that time it will not be the lowest, it is the highest one. So we're going to go for the project, which one will give us highest NPV. So very careful, you have to understand the logic. For that reason, you have to read your management accounting paper from chapter number 15, I think. So you can check from there, read the chapter to understand more. This question come in the exam, it's not going to be same. So you have to understand the logic, how's it work. All right, let's move on to the next one. So the next one we'll do task 1.6. So let's have a look what we have here. Now this task 1.6, this from the extended trial balance is not very difficult one, but if the question asks for the adjustment, I mean, if they ask for the accruals and the prepayment, it could be tricky in the exam. So make sure you understand what is the accruals and what is the prepayment. It's very, very important. It's one of the very tricky area, accruals and the prepayment adjustment. So let's have a look what we have here. This task is based on the workplace scenario of new place. You are working on the accounts for the year ended 31st December 2017. Your next task is to complete the extended trial balance, which was left unfinished by a person who has since left the business and extracted of the shown below. They're saying like someone was preparing the extended trial balance and that person just left on the middle. So they're asking you to complete this extended trial balance. This is the one. Extend the entries for the highlighted item into the appropriate SPL and the SFP column. So they're asking to adjust the entry with the ledger balance and take it to the right place. Is it belongs to the statement of profit and loss account, or is it belongs to the statement of financial position, and complete the trial balance, extended trial balance. The loss for the year has been calculated correctly 185,588. So the question already tell us we have a loss that is 185,558. Remember, if the question give us the loss, normally what happened on the profit and loss account, the credit side, if the credit side is higher and the debit side is lower. So if the credit side is higher and if the debit side is lower, we have a profit. That means my income, credit is income, my income is more and the expense is less, and that's why we're making a profit. But if my credit side is lower and the debit side is higher, then the business make a loss. That means my expense is more than my income. So if it is a loss, normally we record the loss on the credit side. So the loss will come here also on the financial statement on the debit side. So the loss will be on the credit side because credit side will be lower. It's like a balance CD. To fill in the gap, I have to write the loss on the credit side. Also on the financial statement, we're going to write on the debit side. Why? Because it will reduce my capital. So my capital is the credit and the loss will be debit. So for that reason, we're going to write on the debit side and it will reduce my capital. On the other hand, if I make a profit, then the profit will come to the debit side and it will come to the credit side on the financial statement because my profit will increase the capital. All right, so let's start what we have here. So let's complete this one. The first one, cash at bank. So this one is completed. Cash at bank, there is no adjustment. It will not go to the profit and loss account. Cash and the bank is asset and it will go to the statement of financial position. And we can see on the ledger balance, it on the credit side, that means it is a bank overdraft. And that's why it is going on the credit side on the statement of financial position because it's a liability. But on the ledger balance, if you see it on the debit side, that means it will come on the debit side here as well. Because if I see the opening balance on the ledger is a debit, that means it's my asset. But if I see on the credit, that means that's my liability. Purchase ledger control, that's my liability. It is my credit supplier account. Allowance for the doubtful debt. It is not completed. So I have a credit and I have a debit. Remember that credit and debit is like a plus and minus. Credit and debit like a plus and minus. So you have a credit and you have a debit. That means I have to find the balance. So 2000 minus 182 and the allowance for doubtful debt, this one belongs to SOFP. And it's allowance, so it will be credit. So the amount will be 1818. So you're going to write it here. And then irrecoverable debt, this items belongs to the profit and loss account. So you can see 180, we have adjustment and we have 180 on the debit side. That's it, no problem. Then the inventory, you have opening and closing. Opening inventory, we have here 178. This will belongs to the debit side on the profit and loss account. So 178, 500. And the closing inventory you have a 2, 1 and 2. 1 will go to the profit and loss account on the credit side. So that will be 182,700. And another one will be the asset on the statement of financial positions on the debit side. 182,500. 182 actually 700, isn't it? Not 500. So 700. So this two will be same anyway. So closing inventory will go to place. One on the credit side on the profit and loss account and a debit side under the current asset. So it will be on the financial statement on the debit side because from one point of view, the closing inventory we take away from the cost of sales. So opening inventory plus purchase less closing inventory. And we also take it to the statement of financial position under the current asset section. And they said after that, they said we have a loss. The question already give us the loss. We don't have to calculate that. So the loss will be on the credit side. So 185, 588, and also on the debit side on the financial statement, 185, 588. That's it. So we have completed our extended trial balance. All right, let's move to the next one. The next one we have here This is for the adjustment. Let's have a look what adjustment they're asking. So they're asking here, later in the day, you have received an email from Mo, an except of which is below. We have received an invoice from W&S Limited for rent for the storage unit. So it's like you receive an invoice from one of the supplier for the rent. The invoice is dated 13 February. It's very important because the adjustment quotient, the date is very important. 13 February, you have received the invoice. Relates to the quarter ended 31st of January. So even though we received the invoice on February, but actually it is linked to year ended 31st of quarter ended 31st of, it's not year ended, it's quarter ended. Very, very careful. Quarter ended 31st January 2018. The total of the invoice 42,000. Please, could you complete the journal for the adjustment? Okay, calculate the revised profit. So two questions. Complete the journal for the adjustment and calculate the revised profit. That's fine. We don't have any profit. We have a loss anyway. So let's have a look. The first thing you have to do the adjustment. Now there are a few information here. So our year is ended 31st of December. So our year is ended 31st of December 2007. Anything after that, if I paid in advance, that will be prepayment, or if anything link with that period, but even though I paid later on, that will be accruals. For example, let's say for the month of December, we have used the electricity, but we did not receive the bill until next month or February, for example. But that bills belongs to December, even though we received the bills in January, but the bills was for the last month. So we have to bring back that cost because this is accrual concept. And according to the accrual concept, we have to match the transaction. So if any transaction belongs to the previous period, we have to record on the previous period, even though we did not pay that invoice. Likewise, if we make a credit sale, and even though we did not receive the money from the credit customer, still our sales need to go up, even though the customer didn't pay us. So this is the main logic of the accrual concept. So here what happened, our year is ended 31st of January. So let's try to understand. So 2017 and year is ended 31st of December. And after that, we have a new year, that is 2018. And we received the invoice on February 2018. So let's we receive here, February 18. And we received the invoice for the quarter ended 31st of January. So quarter means 3 months. Quarter means 3 months. So that means inside of this 42,000, there is 3 month rent here. 3 month rent. Now we have to know which 3 month. So if the quarter ended January, that means we have to go back. So we have a Jan 2018. Then we have a December 17, and we have November 17. Isn't it? So November, December, January, because they are saying ended on January. So November, December, January, you have to go back. January, December, and November. Now, this financial year is ending on December. That means in this 42,000, November and the December is this two belongs to for year 2017. And the January, this is belongs to the next period. Now, even though I received the invoice on February, that is 42,000, but out of this 42,000, 2 months belongs to this year because we have a November and December. So that means even though I received the invoice after, and we have to find it out, the cost belongs to the previous period. So I know inside of this 42,000, only 1 month for the 2018 and rest of the 2 months for the 2017. So I have to take the 2 month cost and we have to add it with the last year expense. So I have to increase my expense. And as I didn't make the payment by 31st of January 2017, so that is the accruals for me. So for example, if I use the services, let's say I live in this house for the month of December, but I didn't pay the rent until next month. So for this month, expense will be recorded, but it will be the accruals because it will create some liability. If I use the services, I'm liable to pay for that. So obviously it will create the liability. So when there's a liability, it's a credit because liability is always credit. So first of all, I have to increase my expense. So my storage or the rent will go up because this cost belongs to this period. And obviously my accruals will go up, my liability will go up because I didn't make the payment yet. So I'll say out of 42,000, out of 42,000, 1 month that is belongs to 2008 and 2 month that is December and November is belongs to 2007. So out of 42,000, if I divide by 3 times by 2, that will give me 28,000. And 28,000 belongs to 2007. So I have to add this 28,000 with my this year. So I'm going to say I have to increase the rent. So rent, normally rent is a debit. So if I like to increase it, I make the rent debit again, 28,000. And also it is accruals for me. The reason it is accruals because I did not make the payment yet. If I already make the payment, so it's not my liability anymore. So, but I didn't make the payment yet. That's the reason it is my liability. And if it is my liability, that's my credit. So I'm going to write here, rent expense will be debit. Rent debit 28,000. That means my rent will go up by 28,000. And accrued rent expense or accrued expense, that will be credit 28,000 because my liability will go up because I did not make the payment yet. That's create the liability. The adjustment we're going to write accrued expenses for year ended 31st December 2017. Very, very careful for this adjustment in the exam, especially for the accruals and the prepayment. So make sure you practice your advanced bookkeeping, accruals and prepayment very well because this question can give you a lot of stress in the exam. All right, the next one they're saying calculate the revised profit. Now we don't have the profit. Previously we have a loss. So we have a loss that is 185588. This is the loss we already have. Now if I added more expense, it will create more loss, isn't it? So we already have some loss. And if I said, oh, I have 28,000 expense that I did not record it yet because I received the invoice later on. Sometimes some of you may think like, how come if my year is end and if I receive the invoice after 2-3 months, how I'm going to record it because my year is already ended. Remember that even though the year is ended here, 31st of December 2017, from here, HMRC will give you 9 more months to calculate all this profit and loss and the balance sheet, then submit to HMRC. So it's not your year is ended 31st of December 2017, and the next day you have to tell HMRC, no. You can wait 1 year, like 9 months, sometimes they give you 10 months, then you do the calculation and you submit after. So within 9 months, you will know everything, even there is some invoice will come from the supplier, you can adjust during that time. So we already have some loss. Now we're going to add 28,000 more expense, and that will give us the new loss. That will be 213588. And they said use the minus sign if it is loss. So you're going to put the minus. So you're going to say minus 213588. That's it. I think we understand this question is not very difficult, but as this is the first synoptic assessment we are doing for the level 3 with the new template from September 2021, so we don't have much previous question to practice. So make sure you practice from the question bank and to practice from the mock question. Mock is very important. And obviously, if you need any help from me, feel free to email me. You have my email on the description, and I'll try to help you if I can. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. So I'll see you on the next recording.